Hi friends, I hope that you're having a wonderful day today. My name is Luciano and I make videos on the internet about jump chains, choose your own adventures, and other topics that interest me. If this is your first video of mine, I'm so excited to meet you and to get to have the chance to consider you my pal. And if this is a returning video for you, I'm so excited to get the chance to get to know you just a little bit better. In today's video, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite jump chain things, scenarios. For those of you who don't know, scenarios are little quests that you can go on over the course of a jump that results in you getting a reward of some kind. There's some important considerations to take into account when trying to think about scenarios from a range of different perspectives, whether you are thinking about them from the perspective of someone who is making a jump or you're thinking about them from the perspective of being a jumper in the jump. So now we are looking at a jump document for the purpose of helping people better understand some of the considerations that you need to think about when you are contemplating whether or not you want to do scenarios. I thought it would be best to have us look at an actual jump document. For those of you who are unfamiliar with my videos on jump chains, in the past I have described the process of doing a jump in phases. The first phase is when you decide your build, which is when you take the 1,000 points that you are given, or however many points you are given at the start of a jump, and you decide these sorts of perks, items, and all of the things that you want to buy. And then there is the actual active phase of a jump, which is when you are inside of a jump and you are in danger of jump failing or chain failing. You're interacting with the characters from whatever setting you're in. You're using your powers and all of that fun stuff. And then of course there is the actual end phase when you decide if you want to stay in that setting forever, if you want to return to your home, or if you want to continue jumping and go to another jump and begin the cycle all over again. One of the reasons why I think it's important to have a framework of how a jump actually goes in your mind before you do a scenario is that scenario rewards are very special. Normally, when you are deciding the things that you are buying and that you are adding to your build and how you are modifying your build with drawbacks, that is a one-time decision in the sense that once you've made that decision, it's locked in and you can't change the decisions that you've made. You can't add new things, you can't buy new things or do any of that. But with some scenarios, there are exceptions to this. Every scenario has a reward of some sort. Usually scenario rewards are perks or items that become fiat-backed and that become new additions to you moving forward. The reason why I chose this jump, which may seem like a very silly jump to choose for this particular conversation, is actually that there are scenarios. Now you guys get to see some of my fun formatting, so that's a super fun time for everyone involved. But as you can see, there's actually two scenarios for this jump. The first is the start of something new, and this is a scenario that requires you to stick to the canon of High School Musical, the plot, and see to it that the ending of the story is resolved in a way that more or less aligns with the events of the movie. The reward for that is the show must go on, which is a perk that protects against butterfly effects. This is a full fiat-backed perk. It is a new addition to your repertoire that you earn not through purchasing, but by actually completing the scenario. Stick to the status quo is the opposite scenario and means that you must ensure that Sharpay and Ryan get the leads in Twinkletown and preferably, even better, that the Wildcats and the Academic Decathlon team lose their respective competitions. If you do that, you get the reward That's Showbiz Baby, which is a perk for when you want to enforce social norms and mores and etch them in place. Now, there are a truly staggering range of perks and items that people can get through scenarios, and in fact, we are actually going to go ahead and take a look now at some of the other rewards that someone can get, and we're going to be taking a look at a very fun type of supplement, a scenario supplement. So before we go anywhere else, we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of my favorite jump makers, Pokebrat J's whole catalog. I'm just going to plug it for just 2 seconds because this is a very handy little resource list, and I really wish that more people would organize their jumps like this. Obviously, I have my own drive, and there's actually multiple jump makers who make a ton of jumps who have their own drives, but this is all of Pokebrat's jumps. It's fairly accurate. I think that everything is here, although I might be wrong. But Pokebrat, fantastic jump maker. Pokebrat is also one of the few people who has made a scenario supplement. So, a scenario supplement is a list of scenarios for a setting that give you rewards that feel in line with what that setting should offer, that become fiat-backed, and that become handy items or locations or perks, usually some combination of them. Pokebrat has made some, I know a handful of other creators have made some, and very recently I made one for the Tears of the Kingdom. One of the reasons why I wanted to stop and show people this is just because it's really neat to have this sort of fantastic reason to go visit a setting. One very fun thing about Pokebrat's scenario supplements specifically, and also about mine because I modeled mine after Pokebrat's, is that there is always a sort of super scenario at the end that requires doing something very impressive, usually completing either all or nearly all of the scenarios, and comes with something that becomes super fiat-backed, actually becoming a part of your body mod. If you are not super well versed with Jumpchain terminology, you may not know or have a precise understanding of what a body mod is, but a body mod is a new default state for a jumper that they first gain access to, depending on how you do your jumps, either after your first jump or after your second jump, sometimes even before your first jump. Different people do it differently, but essentially if you take a power lockout drawback, something that reduces you to a state of maximum weakness, everything that is body modded stays with you. So for example, in this particular scenario supplement, the body mod reward is the Ace of Spades. This essentially means that you have 10s across the board in your special scores, your strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. And to some people that may not sound quite so overpowered, but 10s are completely superhuman in Fallout. These are things that should be, for all intents and purposes, beyond what humans can do. Now, there are special characters that have 10s in different ability scores, and obviously there's ways for a player character to have 10s in different ability scores, but essentially, if you have a 10 in an ability score, you are firing on all cylinders when it comes to that ability score all the time. Now, this is not, in my opinion, the most unique kind of scenario reward, although it's probably one of the rarer ones. The kinds of scenario rewards that I really think about a lot when I'm doing scenarios, especially because I'm actually a fairly well-known scenario person. Many of my jumps, especially my Choose Your Own Adventure jumps and my Troyverse jumps, usually are packed with scenarios, some of which do something quite special. They award points. Hello once again. We are now looking at the jump for the city at the edge of nothingness. This is a jump by a jump maker named Azure Knight, who is a fairly well-known original setting jump maker. And what I mean by that is that their jumps are invariably of original settings, with some exceptions such as a few joke jumps that Azure has made. But this is one of their original setting jumps. As you can see, if you glance down at that page number thing, these jumps are incredibly long. We are thankfully not here today to try and discuss the exact length or give an in-depth summary of this. I do mostly want to highlight that this jump is a thing that exists and introduce people to Azure's jumps because I really like them. We are also going to go ahead and jump down to page 114, which is where the scenarios begin. So, these optional scenarios are Azure's way of telling a fascinating story through Jumpchain mechanics of an original setting. If you are doing an original setting jump, then I definitely think that scenarios have new levels of importance if you want to try and tell a cohesive story. One of the things that I find really fascinating about Azure's jumps, and Azure is far from the only person who does this, is that for their rewards, you are able to get points. The ability to get points for completing scenarios is something that is very powerful because it means that you can have a build that starts off not particularly strongly, but as you experience the setting and as you complete scenarios, you are able to go and buy new abilities that then become fiat-backed parts of you. Now, different people handle this differently. Some people say that you only get to purchase all of your new things with points that you've earned over the course of the jump at the end of the jump, and then there's some people who decide, and this is both more and less powerful in very different ways, to go and do it so that it's almost like a video game where when you complete the scenario, you get the rewards and like a heads-up display appears in front of you / in front of your jumper, and you are able to make new purchases using that. Different people are going to have different insights on which route is better. I'm gonna be honest, originally I did do the approach of you get to spend all of the points that you've earned at the end of the jump, meaning that you essentially get to power up twice, but each time you power up is going to be very significant. You get to power up at the start of the jump when you're doing your build, and then you get to power up at the end before you decide what you want to do next. Partially because of Azure's scenarios, and there are truly dozens of these scenarios that all reward points and items or perks, depending on which jump you're in. You are able to go and get your rewards and you're able to make your new purchases during the jump. This is especially something that people should consider doing if you're doing the Kingdom of the Stars jump, which is a jump by Azure where you are a living star, which is something that is unique to their mythology and to their world building. I'm not going to spoil everything. I'm not gonna talk about a whole ton of stuff here. I mostly just want to show people that this is a very different approach to rewarding people for completing scenarios. This is something that very strongly incentivizes going ahead and being a part of the setting, being a part of the story. You don't have to do this, but if you want to experience Azure's setting the way that Azure hopes you experience it and the way that Azure designed it, this is probably one of the keys to doing that. It is something that is very distinctly them, but the notion of rewarding points for completing scenarios is not something that they came up with, at least not something that they came up with out of nowhere. It's something that has precedent in dozens of different jumps with scenarios, and it's definitely something that radically changes the balance of a jump document, because normally with jump documents, your greatest growth is experienced, at least in a guaranteed sense, your greatest growth is experienced at the start of a jump and then at the end of it. There isn't, for a lot of jumpers, growth that happens during the jump in terms of their overall power level and what they can do unless they have specific builds that were designed for that. Lots of people have uncappers, which allow your perks to grow in power without an upper limit, and lots of people have like training boosters, but it takes a dedicated build with specific intentions to create something wherein during the course of the decade that you are in a jump, assuming you're going by default time and like the assumed time and all of that stuff, it takes specific intentions to create a build where your growth, your biggest stages of growth occur during the jump's active phase. I have a Jumpchain story over on Questionable Questing where you can see what happens when a jumper has that kind of mentality and that kind of build where, sure, they will grow stronger between jumps, but they can also grow stronger inside of a jump itself. One of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is to go and grab a gamer build. There are jumps for the gamer and also a generic gamer jump, as well as jumps that I've made that also give out gamer things, and jumps that other people have made that give out gamer stuff, like the ability to gain classes, the ability to level up, the ability to have a gamer's body and gamer's mind, and all of that really cool stuff, which is one of the easiest ways to have a build that can grow in the middle of a jump, though it's far from the only way to do something like that. But as you can see, the different things that you can get from completing scenarios is something that will tremendously alter how a build looks. There's lots of jumps where a jumper can grow stronger through rewards because scenarios are not at all a guarantee, but are fairly common. And some jump makers focus more on scenarios than others, and for plenty of jump makers, having scenarios is a pleasant surprise. When I was a younger jump maker, I was more energetic about scenarios and things, and I still really like them, but I'm going to be honest, it can be difficult designing a scenario if you are a jump maker and you're trying to create something that's really fun and unique, because rewards are some of the strangest things to try and decide how to create. I have a lot of different scenarios and a truly staggering range of scenario rewards that people can get from exploring my jumps and successfully completing scenarios. And I really like the different scenarios that you can find in my jumps. In fact, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of my scenarios right now. So now we are looking at my Tears of the Kingdom Scenario Supplement. There is some fun stuff to look at here. This is one of my most recent big projects in the Jumpchain community. It was directly inspired by Pokebrat Scenario Supplement for Breath of the Wild, which is probably my favorite of Pokebrat's scenario supplements, and was why I thought it would be fun to make this one. I really enjoy this game, but we're going to go ahead and just take a look through this so that way you can see some of the rewards. The first scenario that you do, assuming you are doing a Tears of the Kingdom jump or are otherwise in Tears of the Kingdom and are doing some version of the main storyline, is the Great Sky Island scenario. This scenario begins when you wake up in the Room of Awakening and is finished when you enter the Temple of Time, have gained the recall ability, seen the Vision of Zelda, and placed the Decayed Master Sword in the light at the far end of the Temple of Time, as well as take the plunge from the Temple of Time to Hyrule's surface. If you complete this scenario, you gain several rewards. You gain the Purapad and King Raru's arm, as well as the ability to use recall. The Purapad is this game's take on the Sheikah Slate, but minus the explicit magical stuff. King Raru's arm is the item that is the take on the Sheikah Slate's powers, just magic in a different formats, essentially. You also gain the ability to use Zelda's power recall, which is a very fun ability. As you can see here, I did not attach point rewards to this scenario supplement because I did not want to attach points to someone else's jump. The only area in which I have done that is that I have my own baby universal drawback supplement for Normally and mostly for my own jumps, but people can take those and use them in other people's jumps if they want in a sort of universal drawback supplement sense. That's up to them. But as you can see here, there is a story objective to complete, and then there are some rewards that you get for doing that. This has all of the main quests in the game, except for some of the ones that get sort of smushed together into one big thing here, into one big overarching quest. And when you complete all of them, there are a number of side quest, location, and miscellaneous scenarios as well. This does include the ultimate scenario, but because I decided to have some fun and I listened to some community inputs, there's actually some stuff past that as well. But we can go ahead and we can take a look at all of this stuff. If you want to see and read anything in detail, feel free to pause the video. I am hoping that at the points that this is public, I will have figured out how to get my ability to link stuff back, but in case that hasn't happened, definitely feel free to pause this and to take a look at what we are just sort of skimming past. But there is a ultimate scenario here. It's called the Hero of the Kingdom. This does require completing all of the main quests and side quest, location, and miscellaneous scenarios, and once you have it, once you've done this, you automatically complete the scenario and you get the very cool rewards. The main reward, the reward that is my take on the body modding / super fiat backing something, is the Hero of the Kingdom perk, which makes it so that you can use Raru's right arm forever, and you can use Raru's right arm all the way, even when you're stripped down to your body mod. And it also includes auto build and rewind, which are not Raru abilities, but are abilities that you acquire over the course of the game and are linked to your arm. This is very exciting. I think that a lot of people understand that the sort of goofy telekinesis and represented by Ultra Hand is something that is incredibly powerful. And if you go to the efforts of essentially 100%ing this game, although technically not quite 100%ing this game as a jumper, where it's a real world that surrounds you, I think you deserve a fitting reward. And this feels like a fitting reward for that level of dedication. There are a few non-canon scenarios that are not required for the Hero of the Kingdom scenario, but are building on existing lore. There's Hero of the Ages, which does essentially force you to move closer to 100%ing the game and gives you a fitting reward for that. And then there is the Imprisoning War, which is a fusion and also a throwback of Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, and Tears of the Kingdom, and involves Terrico coming back, and also gives you a reward that feels in line with that truly heroic amount of effort, given that to even begin it, you do have to complete the Hero of the Kingdom scenario. Beyond that, there's a little bit of a notes section. I didn't want to talk too much about this, but I did just want to show you all what some more scenarios look like. These are some of the scenarios that I've made. Unsurprisingly, you can also take a look at many of my other jumps. The area that is the most packed with scenarios are Troyverse scenarios, Troyverse jumps, and also general choose your own adventure jumps. So Troyverse is the name of a setting that has both safe for work and not safe for work material, and my conversion of choose your own adventures includes safe for work, choose your own adventures, and not safe for work, choose your own adventures, and most of the jumps in both of those categories, technically all four of those categories, will include a handful of scenarios. Some scenarios do reward you points for completing them, while others just reward you cool perks, items, or companions. But hopefully now you have a better idea of what a scenario is, what it looks like, and you have greater exposure to different kinds of scenarios that you might come across in your adventures as a jumper. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I know that I've enjoyed making it. It's definitely going to be fun to try and upload this and to try and do all of that stuff, but I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Bye-bye, everyone!